Hello. If you're watching this presentation, it's probably because you would like to get some ideas on how you can get a competitive edge in the market you're in. There's only two ways to get the competitive edge. The first one is on price, the second one is on value. And for most of us, it's a combination of the two. Your customers may be pulling you towards price, you need to pull them back towards value. In this short presentation, I'm going to show you a very simple way that you can reduce the amount of price objection you get, improve your conversion from proposals to deals, and just make the whole process easier and more enjoyable for both you and your customer. Now, many years ago, Ken Blanchard wrote a book called The 1 Minute Salesperson. It was a great little book, and it contained much wisdom. And one particular line that sticks with me, he said that customers don't buy a product or service, they buy how they imagine using it will make them feel. And that's very true. But how does that relate to the business environment where you're selling a complex solution and maybe it's very competitive? Well, if you think about this, a business will buy a product or service because of what it does for them or what they imagine the value to be. So in your sales process, that's what you need to focus on. Now, many of you will already be familiar with the idea of elevator pitches or capability statements or short summaries that put across your company's capabilities and credibility and USPs. The fact is, very few USPs exist, and they probably don't differentiate you enough. In fact, I would go so far to say that it's almost impossible to differentiate yourself in a generic sense. If you took your elevator pitch and you dropped in at the top the name of a competitor, much of that summary would be true for them as it is for you. So I would like to introduce you to a topic or a concept I call comparative advantage. It needs to fit in the end of your sales process. Your elevator pitch is fine in the early stages when you're building credibility and confidence. But as the customer becomes more engaged, they need more concrete information to help support and make that decision. So what does a comparative advantage look like? Well, before you particularly write one, you have to write one for each client. You need three things. You need a good understanding of what the customer is looking for, the needs, the criteria for the decision, and most importantly, the value or benefit they expect to gain from your solution. You also need to know your key competitors, because you are going to propose your solution based on the client's needs and in comparison to a particular competitor. And it's not about features, facts, or even benefits. Your comparative advantage should state real value to the customer because that's what they buy. I'll give you an example. If you were selling a complex accounting system, and one of the things a customer wants to do in their business is to reduce cost, you would then have to look at how your system, if they change to it, would help them to manage and reduce cost in their business. Now, one of the things that you might find in that scenario is that you could send out PDF invoices and statements as opposed to doing it in the post, which they do now. Do your competitors offer that facility? Because if they do, it's not a comparative advantage. But let's imagine for a moment they don't. So we have a customer that can save money by doing PDFs. The competitors don't offer that. Now, what's the value of that to the customer? It's a very simple calculation. How many invoices and statements do they send out per month? Let's imagine it's 2,000. How much does it cost them per invoice, per statement? Time, postage, paperwork. Let's imagine it's £2. That's £4,000 a month, if my maths are correct, which is getting on for £50,000 a year. So the first paragraph in your comparative advantage is this. We believe we can save you £50,000 a year. That's because. So now you are truly beginning to differentiate yourself because you're coming up with statements that your competitors can't beat. The last thought I'll give you on this one is that when it comes down to it and the customer has two proposals in front of them, you and your competitor, you need that competitive edge. You need your comparative advantage to be strong. But the reality is it's a game of inches. So just one or two small differences, one or two small advantages will help you win the business.